I want to look at using a database list table as the source for your pivot table. Now, up to this point, we've been creating our pivot tables directly from just a straight, set of data here. Nothing special about it. It's just row after row of, mind-numbing data. And what we've been able to do is make just a series of different designed pivot tables from it, and of course pivot charts. And it's worked out really well. Now, the downside to what we've been doing is that, using just a regular set of data, is that if later on, if you were to add, let's say, more rows of data, in other words, you originally put your pivot tables together using, let's say 1,000,000 rows of data, and then it turns out that you've got 100 more or 2,000 more records that you want to add to the data here. The problem is that you end up having to reselect the range of data that the pivot table would make a pivot out of. So in a summary, but we never really got into that area with what we've done up to this point. So what I want to do now is run you through a series of scenarios where you might add data, add new new fields, new columns, and so forth in your data, and kind of go from there with it, and see how we have to go about modifying and tweaking to make things work properly. So let's just start this way. Let's say we put together a pivot table using this data. This is the same kind of data that we've been doing or working with all this time. So we're going to go ahead and click on to Insert. We're going to go to Pivot Table and go ahead and hit OK. And there we go. Okay, so we're going to make it kind of a smaller summary of data here. So I'm going to bring in, let's say, the reps. Okay, so I'll take the reps, bring them into the rows. There they are. And then I'm also going to bring in the total sale, which is going to be the revenue. Get that summarized, right? Bring in the total cost. Do that. All right. So that's perfect. And then I can go back in there, click on it here, call this one revenue, call this one COG apostrophe S, and then I can double click each one of them, number format, number, comma, no decimal places, and do that for each one of these. Oop. Didn't mean to do that. All right, go back to here, double click it, and then number format, number, and there we go. Okay, so simple. All right, now what happens now is if any of your data changes, okay, so let's just say we go back into here, and let's just say that it turns out that this particular sale here, all right, wasn't done by LuJack. It was actually done by, rows. All right, so I'm just going to go here and I'm going to change that one to rows. All right, I'm going to go down a little bit further, and this one is also rows. All right, so our data has changed, right? So now what happens, if I go back to my pivot table, you're not going to see it updated. Now, if you were to go to close the worksheet or the pivot table or just the whole thing here, close it up and reopen it, then it would automatically refresh itself. But by just changing it like we did and then coming back here, you're not going to see any update until you go back to the Analyze tab here and you go and you hit refresh. Now, there's a top button refresh, which is just refresh. But if you hit the bottom one here, you can go and choose refresh or refresh all. The difference is that the refresh will only update the pivot table that you're on. If you've got about 20 other pivot tables here, hit refresh all of them will be updated, right? So if I just go back here and click on the refresh, then you'll see rows pop right in there. Now let's say on the other hand, what you end up doing is maybe going back to your data, going to the end here, and deciding that you want to add a new field outside of our range here, all right? And let's say that field is going to represent profit. I mean, if you've listened to many of the other videos in this module, you'll have witnessed many times us having to do the calculated field tool to create the profit. But what we can do instead is just come out into our actual data, go to the outside here, and I'm going to type in, let's say, the word profit, and then go over here and put together a formula, and that formula is going to be taking that total sale, all right, minus the total cost, all right? And if you want to even go further, we could include the rep commission that was paid. In other words, this is what the rep made on that particular sale. We could include that as well. So we're going to do another minus, and then we'll click onto that number as well. So we do all that, hit the enter key, and we get that. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on that cell, bottom right hand corner, double click it, copies it all the way down. Now if I want this to look like this does, I can actually just click onto this column, go over to my home tab and hit the paintbrush, and then click on to this column right here, this cell right here, the profit one here, and that will do the whole thing down. Pretty cool. So I did that to avoid having to put together a calculated field like we had done so many times before. But now what's going to happen is I go back to the sheet, which has the pivot on it, and I don't have that field available. And the reason for it is that when I originally put this together, this pivot, it was only going up to column Z and not to AA. So what I need to do in this case is go back into my Analyze and tell it that I need to change the data source. So I click onto that, click on the Change Data Source, or you can just hit the top button. Either one will work. Do that. It takes you back out to the data, and as you'll see here, currently it's only selecting out to column Z. Now, I can make it real simple by going in there and clicking at that spot right there, backspacing off the Z and putting AA in there. That would work. The other way that would work is going all the way to the beginning here. And actually, part of the problem is it got unhighlighted. Let me just do this again here. So I would go back into Analyze here, go to my Change Data Source, so hit the top button there. There it goes. And I would start here. See, now when I click onto that, it just gives me A1. Now what I'll do on my keyboard, I'll hold down my Shift key and my Control key, hit the right arrow key, that'll go all the way to the end, and then my Control Shift down arrow key, that goes all the way to the bottom. So now I've included that whole area. Now I'll go ahead and hit OK, and there we go. Now all of a sudden there's profit popping up there. So now I can take profit and I can maybe take that and drag it underneath cost of goods, and now I've got that one. And then I can go ahead and double click that, call it maybe GM for gross margin, because I can't use the same name. And for the number format, again, commas, no decimals, and then OK a few times, and there we go. So that's how we fix that. Now, a third situation might be that you would add a new record in there, a new transaction. Let me just back up a little bit too. If we would have initially put the profit, let me just bring this back up here again. If we would have put that profit field in between this range, okay, then what would have happened is it would have already been in there, and we could just hit the refresh button, and then we would have seen the field there. But because we had put the field on the outside, that's a big game changer. Now, let's say we go back. Let me just go back down to the bottom of the database list here, and let's say that we add a few more new transactions. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just the last 5 here. This will make it easy to do here. I'll hit copy, and then I'll go down to here, and I'll go ahead and paste those back in again. All right. And what I'm going to do is kind of change this up a little bit, and so that it will look as though I added new records here. So what I'll do over in the rep area of this, I'm going to put in here, let's say maybe Stein. We'll put more. I'll put Smith. More again, and then Stein again. Okay, so that'll be like we put new information in there now. So we put 5 or 6 new records in there on the outside. Now I made it real obvious because I've changed. I've put different rep names in there. So when we go back to our data now, you'll see none of those rep names in there. Now, even if I went in and clicked onto my analyze and clicked onto my refresh button, okay, nothing happens because it's only refreshing within that range. So again, I need to update my range. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go back into the change data source. I'll just hit the top button here. I'll click on the first cell. Control Shift right arrow key, Control Shift down arrow key. That takes care of it. See, now it went further down. I hit OK on that, and now you'll see those additional names in there. So that's how we fix that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to convert our data list here, this thing here, into what we call a table. And by doing that, then when we base our pivot table off of the table, we're not going to have to worry about redoing our data range each time we add more transactions or when we add more fields. It'll automatically be incorporated, and we won't have to worry about that. So what I'm going to do is you go anywhere in your database list that we've been working with, and then we go back into Insert, and we click on the table this time, see? So you click on the table, and all you have to do really here is just hit OK, and that's it. So now the whole thing converts over. Now, it gives you, it's a table now, so it gives you now the ability of applying different styles to this. So if you want to go with some different colors, you can maybe go with, let's say, this orange one here. Because I've already put my own colors in there, this doesn't override it. So, but we don't care. The big thing was I just wanted to make sure we could see the labels at the top there for the fields. Okay, so now it's a table. Now what do? Well, let's create another pivot table off of this, right? So we'll click anywhere in the data. We'll go back to Insert, Pivot Table. Now you'll notice on here it says select the table or range. Well, now it's selecting table 2. So when we had created this data table, it was given the default name of table 2, and that's what you're seeing here. All right. So you can leave it, doesn't matter, but it doesn't hurt to just leave it as a table 2 or whatever. and everything else remains the same. So we just go ahead and hit OK. There we go. None of this looks any different. But now we'll do the same pivot table. So I'll go ahead here and get the rep. Put that into the rows area. No problem, right? And then I'll bring in, again, for the calculations, we'll bring in the total sale. We'll bring in the total cost. And we'll bring in the profit. There it is. So it's all three of them. I'm not going to worry about formatting at this time. Now, the thing that I want to show you now is what happens if we were to, let's say, add a new field to the to the list. So if we go back to our data, and we go off to the far end here, all right. Let's say I want to call this next field, let's say we'll call this one shipping, okay? And what we do is, we charge, let's just say, 1% of the total sale for shipping. That's what we charge. We make it easy. So we put in there an equal, all right? We take our total sale here, right? Times 0.01. All right. Now you'll notice too that when we are working with a table, it ends up giving us more of the field name than it does the actual cell address. So it just puts in there T sale. Not a big deal. But watch what happens. Once I put that formula in there, hit the enter key, it automatically puts it in for all of the rows going down. So it's a little bit of a little extra there for us. Now, I go back to the pivot table. All right. And you don't see anything. You don't see it here right now because we need to refresh the list. So if we just go back and click on the Analyze, hit refresh, then you'll end up seeing that pop in there, the shipping. So we didn't have to go back and change our data source. We just had to hit refresh, and then we see the field. And then I can take that field, drag it underneath profit there, and there's my shipping. You see, when we created that table, or we created the table out of our original data, we made it what we call dynamic, and it just automatically kind of updates. Now, the same thing holds true if we go back to our data, go to the very bottom, and let's say I add a new record. So I'm just going to go right here. I think I could still do my, well, I don't think I can do the Control D, no, because it's not copied anymore. So I'll just select the last three here, all right, and I'll copy that, all right. Now if I go to here and I go to paste it in there, all right, I gotta do it this way. I'll select it across like that, all right. I'll hit Control C. I'll just hit Control C to copy it. Go to here, Control V. There it goes. Okay. So now I just added, pretend like I just typed in 3 new rows of data. Well, what happened here is that the table expanded, as you can see here, to include that. Right. Now what I'm going to do is I'll go here and I'll find the I know what happened. Oh, you know what? I didn't go far enough. That was stupid. Well, let's do this. Sorry about that. Go across here. So I always make easy things into hard stuff here. So Control C for copy, and I'll go back to here and just do a Control V to paste it. There we go. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is go over to the reps here, and I'll change this one here to Dunham. This one to let's say Nixon, and this one to Schwami. All right. enter that in. There we go. So what happens? Well, now we go back to our sheet here, and now you look at this, and we don't see the names in there, but we did put this out. We did add this to the range. So all we really have to do in this case is go back to Analyze, hit our refresh button, and now you'll see those items come in as well. So the moral of the story is the most that you ever have to do is refresh after adding new fields or adding new records and so forth. And again, keep in mind that if you end up doing those additions after you've already created 5 or 10 different pivot tables, all you have to do is hit the refresh all, and that way all your pivot tables in your entire workbook will be updated. Okay, so I think that's about it. I really appreciate you guys watching this video. Hope you learned some new stuff that you can apply to your own work. I think this is a good set of little tools to make your life easier with PivotTable. So thanks a lot for watching. Take care.